Well, good morning. Today is Monday, January 6th, and today we are in Isaiah chapter 40, and we're going to be reading verses 12 through 31. And it's a lengthy passage, but I think you'll be blessed. Word of God says, "Who has measured the waters in the hollow of his hand, and marked out the heavens with a span, enclosed the dust of the earth in a measure, and weighed the mountains in scales and the hills in a balance? Who has measured the Spirit of the Lord? Or what man shows him his counsel? Whom did he consult? And who made him understand? Who taught him knowledge, or taught him the path of justice, and showed him the way of understanding? Behold, the nations are like a drop from a bucket, and are counted as the dust on the scales. Behold, he takes up the coastlands like fine dust. Lebanon would not suffice for fuel, nor are its beasts enough for a burnt offering. All the nations are as nothing before him. They are counted by him as less than nothing and emptiness. To whom then will you liken God? Or what likeness compare with him? An idol? A craftsman casts it, and a goldsmith overlays it with gold, and casts it for its silver chains. He who is too impoverished for an offering chooses wood that will not rot. He seeks out a skillful craftsman to set up an idol that will not move. Do you not know? Do you not hear? Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is he who sits above the circle of the earth, and its inhabitants are like grasshoppers. Who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them like a tent to dwell in? Who brings princes to nothing and makes the rulers of the earth as emptiness? Scarcely are they planted, scarcely sown, scarcely has their stem taken root in the earth. When he blows on them and they wither, and the tempest carries them off like stubble. To whom then will you compare me, that I should be like him? Says the Holy One. Lift up your eyes on high and see. Who created these? He who brings out their host by number, calling them all by name, by the greatness of his might, and because he is strong in power, not one is missing. Why do you say, O Jacob, and speak, O Israel? My way is hidden from the Lord, and my right is disregarded by my God. Have you not known? Have you not heard? The Lord is an everlasting God, the creator of the ends of the earth. He does not faint or grow weary. His understanding is unsearchable. He gives power to the faint, and to him who has no might, he increases strength. Even youths shall faint and be weary, and young men shall fall exhausted, but they who wait for the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. The reason that God judged the nation of Israel so many years ago and carried them off into captivity into Babylon, and the northern kingdom is Israel carried away into Assyria. The reason that happened was God was punishing them for idolatry. They were his bride. Israel was the bride of God. They were his wife. And they were being unfaithful by worshiping idols made of wood and overcast with gold and silver. And for their unfaithfulness, God punished them, disciplined them. It's a historical fact that when the people of Israel came back from the captivity in the diaspora, when they came back from their captivity in Babylon, and when they returned under Ezra and in the book of Ezra and Nehemiah under the leadership of Zerubbabel, never again did they make idols of stone and wood. Never again was idolatry a national sin for the people of Israel. No, they're still alienated from God in that they've rejected their Messiah. And unfortunately, today most Jewish people are they're not believers. But there's always a remnant. And what Isaiah is prophesying here is that they need to realize who their God is. There's no one like their God. He's above all. He's the creator of all. He's all powerful. The rulers of the world are like nothing to him. All the other nations are, he says, we're like grasshoppers. But always, always, Israel has the covenant. Going back to Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, God had made a covenant with Abraham that from his seed would come a nation that was as numerous as the stars in the heaven and the sands on the shore of the sea. And that they would be his people and he would be their God. And in this passage that we've just read, we see a promise to Israel that if they would wait on the Lord, he would restore them as a nation. He would restore them to a place of blessing. And I believe that there are some principles involved there. He says, they that wait upon the Lord, they shall renew their strength. They shall run. Oh, mercy. Excuse me. They shall run and not grow weary. They shall walk and not faint. And what does it mean to wait? What does it mean to wait upon the Lord? Well, it's not just like waiting in line, okay? But there's some thoughts involved with the idea of waiting on the Lord. The first thing that it involves is listening to the Lord. It involves us listening to him. It involves us longing for him. It involves us being led by him and being in submission to him. But it just means that we're totally dependent upon God. He is Lord. He is Lord, and we're totally depending on him. And so this is what God says. If we wait on the Lord, if we long for him and we look for him and we listen for him, he will renew our strength. He He will lift us up. He will help us in our time of need. And that's the promise. That's the promise that God makes. He says if we draw near unto him, he'll draw nigh unto us. And so as we look at this passage and we think in the context that he's speaking to the nation of Israel, and largely the book of Isaiah is one of condemnation and telling them that they're going to be judged for their idolatry, but it also intermingled with that judgment are so many promises. Isaiah, especially in the Old Testament, in the book of Isaiah, he prophesied about the Messiah. He prophesied about how he would be born of a virgin, how he would be born in Bethlehem of Judea, how he would, so many of the prophecies about Christ are found in the book of Isaiah. But they all point to a future promise that God made to Israel, that he would restore them as a nation and he would restore them to a right relationship with himself. So, what's the application? How do we apply this to ourselves? Well, we have to understand this is speaking to the nation of Israel. So it's not directly speaking to us, but there are principles that we can glean from it. We see the faithfulness of God. That God is faithful. He keeps his promises. We also see that although God keeps his promises, God's timetable is not ours. So we have to learn to wait on the Lord. And while we're waiting on him, we're looking to him, we're longing for him, we're listening for him. And once we hear him speak, and we need to be obedient. So that's the lordship. He's either Lord of all or he's not Lord at all. You can't have partial obedience. And I know that's difficult, but that's what we're called to. We're called to obedience. And he says in that passage we just read, there's not enough lumber in Lebanon to offer. Even if you offered all the animals in Lebanon, there's not enough burnt offerings you could make to appease God. We're totally dependent on his mercy and his grace. And we need to remember that God doesn't need us. He says we're just like grasshoppers. He's so far above us. But just the wonder and the privilege of knowing that God desires to work in us and through us. He desires a relationship with us. And he strengthens us. He says, they that wait upon the Lord, even young men will grow weary and faint. But he says, they that wait upon the Lord, looking to him, longing for him, listening for him, they will renew their strength and mount up with the wings like eagles. You know, I just watched again over the weekend, or over the last week or so. I was sick, and we were just laying on the couch watching some movies, and watched The Lord of the Rings again. And you know, I thought there's a couple different times in there. They said, "Oh, it's the eagles, the eagles." And I thought, you know, as we think about the eagle, we think about freedom. As Americans, it's our national bird, right? So as we think about freedom from the penalty of sin is given to us through Christ. And he says that when we wait upon the Lord, he will renew our strength. We will mount up with wings, rising above the problems, rising above the difficulties. And that's a wonderful thing to know, that when the trials come into our life, and they will, God can enable us to soar and overcome. That's all I have for today. I hope you have a blessed day. We will see you again tomorrow.